Hello and welcome to Dub at the Cup. We just finished watching the third place matchup between Sweden and Australia. Unfortunately, the Matildas couldn't get the win, but we're lucky enough to be joined by Perth Glory star Tash Rigby. Tash, how are you?
I am very well. Thank you for having me.
I'm really glad that you could join us. I know you're busy with work, so I really appreciate you spending some time with us. And as always, we're lucky enough to be joined by A-League's commentator Teo Pellizzeri. Teo, take me through your initial thoughts after the game.
I think the better team won. I think Australia got what they deserved out of this game, which is they didn't score and they didn't get much. I think the lack of originality in selection and relying on players that were clearly starting the game in the red showed from minute one. Unfortunately, that's the strategy the Matildas went with. At least they were true to the strategy they took into the tournament, but that's the result they got. Let's start with the players' perspective, though. Tash, we knew that adrenaline and Australia's excitement for being at home was going to be a huge motivating factor that might have given them an extra little bit in their legs and a bit of pep in their step. But you play for Perth. You know what it's like to have the travel and the fatigue and to have it all accumulate over the course of a long season. What did you observe from the Matildas tonight?
Yeah, 100%. I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, it's been a huge few weeks for the girls, especially with the extra time, and not only physically but mentally. I just think it's been massive the past few games, and I can't imagine the toll that's taken on them. So I think both physically and mentally, they did seem a little bit drained, like you said. Although I'm so proud of their efforts and I'm so proud of how they played. They just, I think Sweden were class tonight and they just played very, very well.
So here's my question for both of you. You can start, Tash, and then Pokuah, feel free to follow on. What was Australia's plan to actually win tonight's game? If we were going to win, what was it going to look like?
That's a very good question. I mean, we have amazing attacking threats, so hopefully seeing them be able to do what they do best. But yeah, I think it was just a little bit disconnected, and unfortunately we were unable to put the ball in the back of the net. But yeah, well, what do you think? I don't know what I think their plan was.
See, Tasha, I'm left with the same question because I think that this was my concern when Sam Kerr came back into this squad, that we were going to revert back to a system at times where we just relied on Sam Kerr, where we would send the ball long and she'd be forced to bring it down and then have to find the next pass. And sometimes that's just not a repeatable action that you'd know what the outcome is going to be every time. And I was a little bit disappointed that we saw Caitlin Foord kind of slip away. She'd had such a great, got better as this tournament has gone on. And when Sam came back in, it almost seemed like we forgot that Caitlin Foord was a really good footballer and she got lost a few times, which was disappointing to see. And I think we were at times waiting for individual brilliance of our players to shine. But when they're so fatigued, it becomes really difficult to, I imagine, for players to shine at their best when they're not at their best.
Well, Pokuah, you say the team maybe forgot Caitlin Foord. More importantly, did they forget Mary Fowler when the team is hitting long balls for Sam Kerr to go and chase? And we know that when it works, it's spectacular. But is bypassing Mary Fowler one of the biggest things that Australia robbed themselves of and started to starve themselves of as a result of becoming a bit too Sam Kerr-centric in the way they structured all of their attacking play?
I think so as well. Watching this game at times, and I was watching with my dad, who's not too familiar with the Matildas, and at times he's going, "Where's our midfield?" They seem to just be all over the place, and I was left with the same question as well, because Mary Fowler, who was playing, just behind Sam Kerr at times, but she was getting really, really lost throughout the game, and she wasn't getting on the ball as much. And when she was getting on the ball, she looked quite fatigued. And I think this tournament has been so much for her to do, particularly in those games without Sam Kerr. She's had to do a lot. And I think she just got to the end and was just really, really fatigued.
So, Tash, what's the step Australia has to take to go from proud of our achievements to a bit more ruthless and becoming winners? Because winners aren't always popular, especially with the teams they beat. I feel as though not just the entire country, but a lot of the world has fallen in love with Australia during this tournament. But what do they need to do to take the next step and actually become have a bit more of a harder edge and not just be happy to be at the pointy end of the tournament, but to genuinely be unhappy that they walked away as a losing semi-finalist?
Yeah, well, I think you guys have touched on it, like staying connected, because like you said, trying to skip lines isn't always the answer. So staying connected and making sure that our midfield is getting on the ball. And look, like we have amazing defenders, midfielders and attackers. It's just making sure that we do have that gel. And it is hard with tournament football and national teams. You don't get to play together the same amount that you would at your club. But we do need, I think you guys have nailed it. Like, make sure that we have that chemistry between lines and we are connecting and we're playing consistently, because we've seen some incredible performances this tournament, but then it hasn't been as consistent maybe as we would have liked.
Now, you're about to go back into an A-League season where you're going to have players in your Perth team that are on the periphery, Sophia Sakalis or Hannah Lowry, even someone like Claudia Miocic, these young players that aren't close to the Matildas, but the reason they're going to play in the A-League is because everyone wants to get in there eventually one day. So I guess my question is, given this team has achieved so much and so many of them have now become household names, what is it that sort of that next generation of players needs to do and needs to motivate themselves with to think, no, the door's not closed. I still need to go out and play in a way that if I win this trophy for Perth Glory, that if I get Perth Glory to the top of the ladder, my form will get recognised and I can still break into the Matildas.
Yeah, I think honestly, like even for me, just seeing this tournament and the traction that it has got and how the nation has rallied behind this amazing team has been so inspiring. And I think like seeing so many of these players, and especially it's funny that a lot of them have actually played for Glory as well, and seeing those players make it to the national stage and really perform and make us all so proud as a country just is only going to continue inspire those younger players and older players as well to achieve their dreams. And I think we speak a lot about remembering the women that came before us, and to be able to see players like Kerr and Arnold and Ford, all of these players have played for Glory before, so you can see the direct link. So I think it's just so important to highlight our current players that are still in the A-League. Like the Claire Hunt story, I love so much. I think she's stood up so much in this performance, and she's been in this tournament. She's been incredible. And look, she's come from Western Sydney, and it's so amazing to see our A-League stars play in the team, and that's what's so inspiring.
Now, speaking of players that had been through Glory, Alana Kennedy, I mean, it is so frustrating that we've been denied her in the semi-final in this third place playoff due to delayed onset concussion. I imagine that you were breaking into the Perth Glory team, or in that Perth Glory team, the season that Alana was over in Perth. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It was the season before me.
Right. So
yes.
From a defender's point of view, though, observing how well Alana played, especially given how little club football she played, I mean, are we in a position now where Alana goes back to battling with her body in order to play for the Matildas, or can we perhaps safely start to build our backline around the partnership of Kennedy and Hunt into the future?
I hope so. I think they had amazing chemistry. They complemented each other's strengths so well, and they just seemed to gel really well and work off each other. So hopefully we can see that. I think, Claire, she just she was so inspiring in how calm and composed she was for someone that has such little experience at that level. And it seemed like she almost just she inspired everyone to take a bit of a breath, which was good, even when she had some of the best players in the world running directly at her at full speed. So, hopefully we can look to see these two continue their partnership.
Pokuah, with that said, Claire Hunt, everyone knows her injury history. It's awesome that we captured lightning in a bottle for the last month and she was able to play every minute of every game. But we know that hasn't been the case in the past. We know that Alana Kennedy has obviously had her injury issues. Is centre-back, as much as it worked in this tournament, is centre-back still the number one focus for the Matildas so that we can get a medal at the Olympics?
No, certainly, Teo, because you speak about Alana Kennedy and Claire Hunt into the future. That window for the future, it's it's that partnership, it won't go for as long as we would like to see it go on because of where Alana Kennedy is in her career and where Claire Hunt is in her career. So I do think that finding the next centre back to hopefully go with Claire Hunt after Alana Kennedy, that is the ultimate goal, because I think the centre back position is one that we still need to find, we need to find more depth in that position, because I don't think we have as many players as we do for, say, wingers or even strikers, because I think we've got Remy Seamerson to back up Sam Kerr and things like that. That centre back role and some of the other positions in our back line, that's the key.
Tash, as far as, aiming for the Olympics, it is only in a year's time. Australia wasn't given a tough qualifying group: Philippines, Chinese Taipei, and Iran. Everyone would expect that the Matildas will take care of business there. They're playing those games in Perth, so I imagine you'll be in the stands for all three of them. What is it you're hoping to see when the Matildas take on those Olympic qualifiers? Because they're coming sooner than you think. It's at the end of October and start of November. So these players, they'll go back to their clubs. They'll start playing club football. The A-League's going to be only a few weeks in when those qualifiers come around. But what do you hope the Matildas look like when we get to our next important round of competitive games?
Yay, finally coming to Perth. I'm so excited. I don't know who got that across the line, but I'm stoked about it. And I think it's at a perfect time. It's going to be amazing for women's football, especially in WA. We saw every game for the World Cup was absolutely packed out. So hopefully we'll see the exact same, I have no doubt, for the Matildas as well, particularly after their success this tournament. I just really hope to see some really an exciting brand of football. And I love Mary Fowler. I think she's just such an incredible player. So her on the ball, forward on the ball, like you touched on, her being really creative, driving at players. Razzo has had a chance to shine, so hopefully she continues to shine as well. And our fullbacks bombing on. I am just obsessed with the Catley and Ford combination. I think it's so incredible. So just more of that, please.
No, I'm with you, Tasha. I'd love to see, that Catley and Ford, that side. It's an Arsenal connection, and I like to see it as well when they play in the FAWSL. For you, Tash, throughout this tournament, have you been surprised ultimately by the way how far the Matildas got, or were you expecting this?
No, I think you got to believe, right? Ted Lasso style. They're an amazing team and they play with such heart, and we've seen what they're capable of. So especially playing in the host country, I just think I wasn't surprised. I was elated to see them go as far as they've gone. I was surprised at how much the nation got behind them. I had no doubt that they were going to cause a stir in the nation. But I honestly, I was at the game, Australia versus England in Sydney, and I was just bawling my eyes out for the first half, because just to see that many people there for women's football, it gives me goosebumps even to talk about it now. And even though the result wasn't what we wanted, women's football is the winner in that situation. So yeah.
No, I think that's the thing that we all really are going to take out of this tournament, is that the growth in women's football, and hopefully, we're not going to get maybe the 60,000, and hopefully one day we can get there for the A-League women's, but hopefully we can get a decent percentage of that to come to those A-League women's games. Are you looking forward to the A-League women's season and with possibility of getting some new fans? And, if you guys are playing in Macedonia Park, I think that ground is fantastic. Are you looking forward to getting some more people?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so excited, and it's just going to take a lot of investment and promotion to ensure that the momentum that has built off the back of this World Cup continues. And it has been good to see already, all of my friends who hadn't previously ever watched a game of football are now obsessed and have told me that they'll be at my game. So I think that already there will be a lot more attendance, hopefully, if we do things right off the back of this World Cup, and then hopefully it just grows from there.
I want to ask you this one thing about the Matildas, because I heard it in the broadcast, and I think it's an important question to ask in terms of, do you think, obviously we're all really proud of how far the Matildas have come into this tournament, making, a third place game. Does it feel like an opportunity missed, or have the Matildas, got exactly as far as think is a really great achievement?
No, I think what they've done is incredible. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the furthest that any Australian team has ever got in a World Cup tournament before. So I think, honestly, like the caliber of teams that the Matildas are coming up against are phenomenal as well and have had historic success. So I think that they've done us, well, in my opinion, they've done us so proud, and I'm so proud to be Australian, and I'm so proud to see the effect that they have created and cause these massive ripples across the country. So yes, in my opinion, I think they've done an amazing job.
Sorry to get on nerd corner, but the under-17 boys made the final in 1999. Sorry, it's the furthest we've gone in a senior World Cup. I am sorry.
There you go. No, I was like, that's why I said, correct me if I'm wrong, and there we go.
You came on the wrong podcast for that. Now, I'm not going to ask this one to you, Tash. I'm going to ask it to you, Pokuah. In the cold, hard light of day, Australia did lose 3 games within the 90 minutes. Would it be a win-win if the United States came and hired Tony Gustafsson and maybe his football has taken the Matildas as far as they can go? He's got us to 4th in the Olympics and 4th in the World Cup, and no one's going to begrudge him the opportunity to serve out the rest of his contract, which is until the end of the Olympics. You know, no one's calling for him to be sacked, but would it be the worst thing and maybe even a win-win if Australia was to try something new because the United States decided that they like Tony Gustafsson?
Such an interesting question, Terry, the way you've phrased that to me, and I appreciate you leaving that to me to answer that question. I think that we have maybe reached the limit for where Tony can take this squad, because I think back to the Asian Cup, and I think back to the result we got in the Asian Cup and how we wouldn't have qualified for this tournament had we not been, hosting this tournament with Tony G. And I think that we've had we've certainly got, some new players, Claire Hunt in this squad that's really exciting. And we've, it's fantastic to see it. But I think something that Tony Gustafsson has mentioned throughout his time as Matilda's manager is that he wanted to build squad depth. And I guess he did that in terms of Claire Wheeler and Charlie Grant, but we didn't see them throughout this tournament. And I question if him as a manager is not trusting some of those players in those big moments throughout this tournament. Is it time maybe for a change where another coach can build on those players that Tony has brought in to take us another step? Because I think the football we play sometimes is not conducive to us being the best side we could be with the players that we have. And I think that Tony maybe has got all he can out of this team and has done a really magnificent job in terms of, getting the Matildas to connect with the Australian public. But in terms of football, it might be a time for a change. And if the United States were to go give him, call him up,
leave with our blessing is what I would say. Here's the thing. I will be grateful that this team and this administration took Australia to a World Cup semi-final. They got the entire nation talking about football. They had everyone fall in love with the game. They smashed all the TV ratings, and they've put the game in a really healthy position. But it's only a healthy position if you capitalize on it. And I feel as though we have wrung the very last drop of energy out of these players. We built a model on England winning the Euros, which is a very narrow focus, probably only had 14 core players. If Sam Kerr hadn't been injured, to be honest, it may have been even less. It may have been 13 core players that we would have seen for the whole tournament. Claire Wheeler never got on the pitch. Courtney Nevin wasn't used until the 3rd place playoff. Charlie Grant was a stoppage time substitution against Canada. We didn't see her. 1 minute. Didn't see her otherwise. Ivy Lulick obviously got concussed, so there's that asterisk, but was unused for the tournament. And Kaya Simon, I hope that we get some honesty about whether or not Kaya Simon was ever going to be fit to play. Maybe if we'd made the final, she magically would have been fit to play tomorrow, but still couldn't get past fit to play today. Who knows? Somehow I don't think the truth's going to come out until everyone's retired and people start writing their autobiographies and so forth. But I do think narrowing the focus worked to get us this far, and getting us this far was still a good thing. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's greedy to want better, and I don't think it's greedy to want evolution. And I also think when we talk about building depth, I don't think Tony Gustafsson picked depth players to challenge his best 11, and that's what made it so easy to leave the narrow focus. I think if we opened our minds to other alternatives, it can't be a coincidence that picking the best performed players in their positions in the A-League Women's worked. That Courtney Vine and Claire Hunt, 2 of the standout players in their positions in the A-League, calling them up, worked. Why can't we try that for more players? That's my rant. I think that's my soliloquy, and I'm going to leave it there. I'm not going to say any more.
I was just going to say there, I think that we have to to recognise the A-League Women's has got fantastic players, and the A-League Women's is, in the scheme of women's football in terms of competitions, it's a very high level competition with high level players, and there are more players that deserve an opportunity to show how much they can do. And I think that it's great. It was great that Tony gave Jessica Nash and Nevin those starting chances against the United States, but you've got to keep giving people opportunities. You've got to keep building confidence into those players so you can trust them in these big moments in World Cups.
Well, I don't think those two are a fair comparison, because Courtney Nevin won her 24th cap today. Jess Nash is still on one. Jess Nash is one of the players I would go back to because she hasn't been given the chances. I think we've got the evidence now that Courtney Nevin couldn't challenge anyone in the starting 11 for a spot in this tournament.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Terry. I would like to see more players given more opportunities because they've earned it. They work hard, and they are good players that we need this squad to be at its best, being players constantly challenged to keep their position, not in some negative way because good players make other players better. That's what we've seen. That's what you see at the best clubs in the world when there are, great players available behind somebody else. The other player is going to get continually better. I think that's what's happened to Mackenzie Arnold. She had to get better to get into that number one goalkeeping position, and now she is our number one goalkeeper.
Now, there was another team out there, would you believe, Pokuah, and I don't think we've even said their name. Tash, what did you think of Sweden in this game? And do you think third place is a fair reflection on the World Cup that they had, or do you think they'll be regretting that they're not playing in tomorrow's final?
No, I think that this is probably where they should have, in my opinion, ended up. I think that they were incredible against Japan. Like, they were so well drilled. Their press all over the park and their ability to suffocate Japan and not give them any time on the ball was incredible. And I just think their athleticism and physicality and the way that they play is very sharp. And I really enjoyed watching them and their team play. So I think they were incredible, but I think, I think Spain and England definitely deserve to be in the final.
What's missing for them to go on and win the gold medal or win a World Cup then? Because you look at Sweden, they've actually managed their generational change quite well. They had a legendary goalkeeper with 150 caps. Musovic has come in and immediately is one of the best goalkeepers in the world. We didn't see Caroline Sager much in this tournament. I mean, she was there as a veteran presence, but didn't actually get on the pitch very much. Same with Linda Sembrand, who was a sub today. So it's almost like they've actually... the generational change has already happened for them, and it's put them in a great position to try and go one better than the silver medal that they got at the last Olympics. But what do you think they need to do to, they've knocked out the US, they knocked out Japan, but what do they need to do to beat an England or to beat a Spain and actually get right to the top of the mountain?
Oh, I don't know. That's a really good question. I think their ball movement is really good, and like I said, they're really sharp and explosive, but maybe their ability to problem solve, I think they did really well when they came up against Japan, but I think Japan weren't as physical, obviously, as some of the other teams as well. So I just think problem solving on the go and connection and just their ball movement in general, I don't know. I think they're an amazing team, but they're competing against some incredible, England and Spain. They're just so clinical.
And they still had a pretty good World Cup. I mean, a lot of people think that Japan was the best team in this tournament, Pokuah, and Sweden will be remembered as the team that knocked them out. Yeah,
Sweden will be. I think that, Sweden, I think third place is probably fair for where they are in the grand scheme of women's football. And they certainly knocked out some really great, credible teams. And I think they are going to get better. I think we keep saying that after major tournaments for Sweden because they get so close every time. But I do think that they are getting closer. It's just a case of sometimes maybe I would like to see them cross the ball in a little bit less and play through the middle. But we'll see at the next tournament.
All right. Well, we're going to throw to the World Cup final. Before we get into our preview of it, let's catch up with KEEPUP's James Dodd and also Sky Sports News' Gail Davis.
Well, it is a very blustery evening here at Stadium Australia. Gail Davis from Sky Sports News in the UK joins me. Gail, you've followed England throughout this journey. You've been there when Serena Wigman was first appointed. We've just listened to her and Millie Bright talk. What do you think the message was? What do you think the mood was?
It's just ultimate calmness. I think if you just dropped in from outer space, you would have no idea England are about to play a World Cup final. It's all process driven, but that's not rhetoric. That's just how they go about things. And she keeps it really simple, doesn't she, Sarina Wiegman? She's a very good communicator. She talked in there about the bond her players have, conversations, trust. Millie Bright talking about not scared to make mistakes. They can all go out and be themselves. And it really did feel like any other game, although we know it's not any other game. The only glimpse we got of the magnitude of the occasion was the line from Sarina that we need to play the best game of our lives.
Very interesting, I suppose, when you flip it onto the Spanish side of things. Jorge Vilda was very touchy on a few issues that we knew would come up in this press conference about players that aren't here. How much do you think Sarina Wiegman will read into the game against Spain from the Euros, last time they faced in a major competition, but also how much of that has to be left in the past?
Yeah, I think what I'd say about Spain, though, is that siege mentality is really dangerous, isn't it? You perform above what you're sometimes capable of. So I think that side of things, she will be wary, but she's definitely got a team that's mentally tough enough and resilient enough and gritty enough to cope with that. As far as the Euros is concerned, England have moved on considerably since there. But what I would say, and the thing that stands out for me is that Spain should have won that game, there's just no doubt about it. But what Sarina Wiegman was able to do that day was tinker with her tactics. And there was a scenario, I remember speaking to her after the game, and she said, I'd always planned to be in that situation. We were like, 1-0 down with 10 minutes to go. She moved Millie Bright up front. Millie Bright caused absolute carnage in the Spain defence. England equalised. They went on to win that quarter-final, and the rest is history. So what I would say is that in Sarina, we trust is the sort of motto of a lot of the England fans and players. And she knows tactically she probably has the edge over the Spanish coach. And that is huge going into a World Cup final.
Just finally, there was a moment of hilarity in the press conference where there was a bit of lost in translation where one of the journalists from Spain said that Sarina is aware that she's going to become the next manager of the England men's team.
Yeah, there was a few, I thought you were going to say the sliding doors moment that she really didn't understand.
But one line finally that stood out for me was Millie Bright saying it's we before me.
Yeah.
And that really summed up the way in which she's a part of this team, such an integral part of this team, but how everybody is made to feel the same way. Even a question about Lauren James and whether or not the trust is still there for Sarina. Yeah. She handled that really well. You just get the sense that there isn't much that can really faze this England team mentally.
No, there really isn't. And I think that when you look at the sort of hurdles that we've overcome, and it's different to what's been going on in Spain, but you lose your captain before you fly out to a World Cup. There's a massive fitness doubt over your current captain in Millie Bright, who hadn't played since March. You lose your top scorer in Beth Mead. You lose your playmaker in Fran Kirby. You don't have Jill Scott, you don't have Ellen White. That is the heart of this team, sort of ripped apart. Then Lauren James, well, you saw what happened with Kira Walsh. I mean, it's extraordinary that she's been playing, she's going to play a World Cup final. You've got the Lauren James suspension. But I think it's all very calm and very pragmatic. The Nigeria game was probably the one that really was the almost kind of that sliding doors, if you like, moment. And they have pushed on from there. So I do. It's Millie's a different sort of captain to Leah Williamson, but she's one that has absolutely relished this role. And I spoke to Emma Hayes, her club manager, yesterday. She was born for this moment. She really is no nonsense. In that kind of maybe Tony Adams mould of Arsenal, Vieira mould, just go, King, go, get it done, set the tone. And even she was a tiny bit of emotion there when she talked about the journey that she's been on. But yeah, it's all about the team first, isn't it? And she knows that tomorrow England get it right and it'll be huge. I mean, history-making, game-changing, superstardom. It's everyone keeps saying to me, how are you feeling about the final? It's like, I can't think about that yet. I have to get to that point tomorrow because there was still so much to do.
Still so much to do, but it will be decided here 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time tomorrow, the kick-off at Stadium Australia, Spain against England for the right to be crowned FIFA Women's World Champion.
Yes, a big thanks to Dottie there, and also for Sky Sports News, Gail Davis, who's been giving us her time during this tournament. And you can keep following the countdown to the World Cup final on KEEPUP. Tash, we've asked you a few curly ones already, so let's go for the trickiest one of all. Who's winning the World Cup final and why?
I think, look, I'm obsessed with Spain. I think they're I just love watching them play. They're such an entertaining team. They're so creative on the ball, and they've just got so much flair. But England are just so well drilled and so clinical in everything they do. So my heart wants to say Spain, but I think my head says England.
I think I've got to agree with you. I think that England are going to win. I think that if Spain were to win, it would be the best footballing team to win the tournament, and that's what you want out of a major tournament. But I feel like England have got better throughout this tournament. I was rewatching the first half against Australia, and they really shut us down, and they were clinical. And I think a lot of us were nervous after Lauren James, got that red card. How are England going to be creative going forward? But they've certainly continued to get better throughout this tournament. With Lauren James coming back, I think the English might steal the trophy.
I'm just excited to be going because I do think it's Spain's style against England's substance, and I do think that maybe the English defence, Pokuah, is the one that can stop Salma, regardless of whether Salma Paralolo starts or comes off the bench. I think that Greenwood and the way the England centre-backs moved across to close down the threat of Ford and Catley. And I will put my hand up, and a few English listeners were very quick to call me out on how wrong I was for my semi-final prediction, and I concede I was dead wrong. But I think the English defence will be organised enough to deal with the threat of Salma. Tash, you're a fullback. If you were having to defend against Salma Paralolo, how would you go about it? And what do you think England will be trying to do to stop her?
I would go home. No.
You would not. You're an intense competitor. You would back yourself, I'm sure of it.
This is true. No, this is true. I would give her a red hot crack. No, I think it's going to be a really big challenge. But yeah, I don't know. They just have to make sure they stay disciplined. And they, like I said, I think they're incredibly well drilled, and like their structure is incredible. So I think they'll be all right as long as they stay disciplined and structured. But who knows? Like, hopefully, I hope Spain take it out. I just think like it would be amazing to see. I think like Australia is now behind Spain as well. So it'd be amazing to see them take it out.
So here's a question, Pokuah, you can lead off, and Tash, I'll give you some thinking time. Who is the best player in the tournament? Because one thing that's been really difficult to work out, and a lot of the print journos have been stumped trying to work out the same thing, who's going to win the golden ball as player of the tournament? I feel as though the final could actually decide it. Like if Spain win and Aitana plays well, it's probably her. If Spain win and Salma scores, it could be Salma. If England win, I think it'll probably be Keira Walsh. But Lucy Bronze wouldn't be without half a chance. But gee, it's tough, and I don't think it'll come from a player from a team that hasn't made the final. So, Pokuah, to put you on the spot, and you can factor in who wins the final in your decision, who is actually leading the player of the tournament and will win the golden ball as the World Cup's best player?
Hey, I actually have no idea, and I've actually been thinking about this throughout the week. I can't think of like who the best player has been, because there's been a lot of. Every time I watch a team, I'm like, I've always thought of the team effort. I've never really, there's individual players have had outstanding moments, but I can't think of like a really consistent player. I would want to say Keira Walsh if the English won, but Keira Walsh did miss a game.
But it's only one, and I think you would compare the game she missed with injury to, say, Aitana's down games, which were the ones against Japan and also Sweden. And you'd probably say, no, but Keira Walsh, maybe her peaks haven't been as high, but she has been a bit more consistent.
Taya, you don't have to try to convince me about Keira Walsh. She's one of my favorite footballers. I think she's sensational, and the prime example of what a number 6 should be. I think she's sensational. So if she won the golden ball, I might be the first one to stand up and start clapping for her. But I think that Salma Paralolo, I think she certainly has a good shout, because coming off the bench with the impact that she's had for Spain, and she certainly got them here, because at certain times they struggled attacking-wise without her. And Bon Mati as well, she's a phenomenal player. I don't know. I don't know. Tash, who's winning the golden ball?
No. I think Terry should tell us who he thinks is gonna win it. No, but I think probably Keira Walsh. I think, yeah, she's been amazing. Before, like you say, like players at individual moments, I would love to have seen how Lauren James would have progressed through because when she scored those 2 goals, that volley, my God, incredible. She's some player, but unfortunately, whatever has happened. But yeah, she would have been my pick otherwise.
No, see, I've got to agree with you, Tasha. That was the only player that was like a real, at the start of this tournament, Lauren James was like, oh, I think she's been phenomenal, clearly the player of the tournament. And that red card has completely derailed all my picks. But also, I just want to let you know, Tash, the reason Teo was going so hard about Spain, right, is because Teo here at the start of the tournament did pick Spain to win this tournament. So I think he's still, trying to put out that, he's going to be right at the end of the day.
It all comes out now.
No one speaks better on my behalf than you, Pokuah, regardless of whether you are correct or not. In this instance, you might be correct. All right, that's the World Cup final. It seems as though it's going to be one of the great finals, and hopefully it does actually manifest on the pitch. Tash, a couple on Perth just to finish with. Of course, we know that there's going to be a standalone celebration of women's football to start the Liberty A-League season. We also know that if you want to get along to the games, you can go to keepup.com.au/LAP. And if you're under 16, you can sign up for the Liberty A-League pass and get along to the matches. Perth have been to grand finals. They've never won a grand final. Is this finally the year Perth makes the leap, Tash, or is it as simple as get into finals first and then assess from there? What are your ambitions, given that you'll probably want to be one of the most motivated and biggest motivators of your teammates once you get back out there for preseason training?
Yeah, well, I was going to say one step at a time. The last 2 seasons, obviously have just missed out on making that final spot. So that's definitely going to be our mission and goal first and foremost. And yeah, I think hopefully, look, we've been building and we've retained a lot of players. So we've been building on something really special. And I think the chemistry we have in our team is a special one. So hitting the ground running for preseason, especially, like, I feel so energized, and it's like I've fallen in love with football all over again watching this tournament. So I think that a lot of players will be in similar positions, and it's just invoked a new sense of motivation and inspiration from me. So I'll be leading through that, and yeah, hopefully we can make finals and then maybe go all the way. That's got to be the goal, doesn't it?
Now, I wanted to ask you about one of your latest signing announcements. Millie Farrow has a fantastic resume, and obviously scoring goals is vital for every team. Perth, certainly, at times you fluctuated. There were some games where you were scoring freely, some games where you were really battling. How important is it that you're building a team that is going to be able to have the firepower to actually climb the table and break back into the finals this year? And how important is Millie going to be to that?
Yeah, we're so stoked to have Millie on board. She is a really big signing for us. And like you said, we do need to put the ball in the back of the net in the end. And she's someone that can do that. And we've just also signed Grace Jale. So those two will hopefully be a really strong pairing as well. I've marked Jale the last couple of seasons, and she is very smart. Her runs behind lines are very smart. She's tall, so that's always good in a striker, and she is quite clinical too. So I think pairing those two together will be fairly unstoppable.
See, Tash, I look forward to watching Perth play because Perth have got a special place in my heart. As a Forza NPL Victoria preacher, every time that I see your squad and I see lots of NPL Victoria talent, Tash, I'm going to poke you to answer. Am I going to be excited when the squad list is finally announced? Am I going to see some NPL Victoria players there?
I hope so. I hope so.
I hope so too. I hope so too because NPL Victoria is where the best young talent is in the country. I've got to say, Teo.
One last one. Kim Carroll obviously got to retire, and the day she retired, she was the games record holder, a former Matilda, a World Cup player, a true legend. How much responsibility are you feeling stepping up to make sure that it's not just you carrying the burden of leadership, but that you have more leaders within your team? Because having someone like Kim there, she doesn't need to, wear the armband to set a great example. So how important is it for you now to build more leaders around you and to be able to make sure that Kim's influence on the dressing room is not lost now that she's no longer playing?
Yes, Kim is one of the most incredible players and leaders I've ever had the privilege to work with. She is an icon and an absolute legend. and a really close friend of mine. So it is no longer having my roommate will be sad, but she brings so much to the squad. So it is very big shoes to fill. But I think the most important thing is leadership isn't like down to just one person. So ensuring that we are recognizing and acknowledging everyone's strengths individually and empowering them to lead through what they're good at. So, yeah, I think it just comes down to making sure that we create an environment where every player feels safe and strong and comfortable to lead through their strengths. And then we essentially lead as a collective as opposed to just a few people.
See, that's a nice place to finish the pod on, because we like that level of positivity heading into the A-League Women's season. Tash, we really appreciate you spending some time with us to dissect the game and talk about the upcoming A-League Women's season. Good luck to Perth Glory and to you as well. And hopefully I do get to see some NPL Victoria talent in your squad.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me, team. I really appreciate it.
Really appreciate it. And Taya, once again, thank you for joining me on the pod, and hopefully maybe Spain win for your bracket for you to pick the ultimate winner.
Yeah, look, Germany getting knocked out in the group stage destroyed the bracket, but at least one half of it is still alive. Pokuah, let's bring on the final. Let's finish the World Cup on a massive high.
No, absolutely. And thank you, everyone, for listening to the pod. To catch all the latest news about the Women's World Cup, you can find us on keepup.com.au. You can find us on Keep Up on all the social media platforms. And to listen back to this pod, you can find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and anywhere else you find your podcast. But I've been Pure Frimpong, and thank you for joining us.